As if Attack on Titan's first season wasn't already among the best narratives I had experienced in anime, Season 2 brings things to a whole new level, even if it is an unfortunately short season at only 12 episodes. This season brings us to an interesting crossroads in the story, where Erwin discovers that the world is far bigger and far more dangerous than he had initially thought, while we, the viewers, discover a bunch more mysteries even as we gather more information about how things are playing out. Starting off with the initial happenings, Season 2 takes us into more danger, more mystery, and more epic, as the appearance of Titans within Wall Rose triggers a massive wave of hysteria, as many start to suspect that the wall has been breached. This leads the scouts on an emergency chase to find the source of the Titans, and of course, we get some answers, but also a whole lot of questions. This is one of the things I am loving about the way Isayama handles his writing. The fact that he can answer your questions and leave you with like 3 more at the same time. As I said in the first video, the world building and the narrative work is superb. Every time the story gives you that nugget of information, you're left with a new set of questions. For instance, you learn that Wall Rose was never actually breached, which leaves you with the question of where did the Titans come from? Then you're given the information that Connie recognizes one of the Titans as his mother, which begs the question of how could that even be possible, or who would even be capable of that, among other questions. The fact is that this mystery is woven into this story very well and keeps getting wilder the more you understand. There's this constant intrigue about what you can learn next that thus far has kept me locked into the story. There's never a moment where I feel like I'm being pulled out of the whole experience in order to get filled in on some random information. There's always something engaging and something that's making you try to puzzle it all out. There's a very important saying about writing: show, don't tell. And that is pretty much how Attack on Titan handles a lot of things. It doesn't take obscene amounts of time to hash out internal dialogue or overemphasize a point. It puts the information into terms that you'll understand, but still keeps things feeling natural and flowing like a conversation normally would be. It has a really good way of saying things without having to directly state them, letting you, the viewer, in on the bigger picture a little bit at a time while the characters remain in the dark. That aside, there were a lot of moments in these 12 episodes that I thought were great. And I'm going to dive into some spoilers here to cover this. Firstly, we come to find out that Krista, an otherwise unremarkable side character up to this point, could very well be the most important person in the cast, as her bloodline comes into play and makes her the target of several factions within the walls. This fact gets widely overshadowed by 2 facts: that you don't fully understand how big it is until later, and that there are far more dramatic things happening. Still, I count it as a highlight to the series because Krista has been an otherwise unsuspecting figure for any major developments in the story up to this point. Sure, I did find it somewhat strange that Isayama would just randomly give her a moment and act like everyone knew her, giving her a spotlight even though she hardly ever appeared. Honestly, I had written her off as nothing but a random side character needed for some wholesome waifu shenanigans up to that point. Then it was revealed that she had noble blood, and that the Order of the Wall was watching her. Of course, there were a few others who knew her identity and her importance, but didn't reveal it and later tried to play that information to their advantage. Again, diving into the more thoughtful angle of conflicts that makes this show seem so good to me. I think this is an example of the character development we get this season. We learn a lot about some of the characters who aren't a part of the main trio or big name members, Emir and Krista being some of the more notable ones. It's interesting how the character development, plot movement, and world building are all intertwined so well and makes the whole story feel like a well-oiled machine. It's like there's never a moment that exists solely for one purpose in this series. There's always another layer to it whenever you peel that back. I think the next highlight is probably one of the most insane things that I've ever seen in anime. One of the biggest plot twists ever, revealed like it was just some random comment. Seriously, the moment you learn the identity of the Armored Titan and the Colossal Titan was absolutely unexpected, because the comments are treated as background chatter while other people are talking about quote-unquote more important aspects. This is probably the biggest moment of the season, and that decision to put it in the background makes it hit that much harder. It isn't over-dramatized or given this big reveal. It's laid out in the open as a matter of fact. The combined shock factor of this reveal and the way it was handled is just wild. I think this speaks to how Isayama knows how to really get the most out of a moment. The choice is creative, different, and so unusual that it really makes the whole moment stand out. Whether that was intended or not, I can't say. However, I do like that it took a different approach to things than making a massive dramatic deal out of it. Another moment I really liked in this was when Erwin faced off against the Armored Titan. You'd think that the battle between the two would be a slugfest of ultra-strong power junkies. Or at least I did. But the fact is that this one was more strategy and thinking than I expected. The Armored Titan proves to be tougher than Erwin, which means he loses in a straight-up punch-out. And that's when Erwin has the brilliant idea of using martial arts instead of brute strength, and is able to submit his foe and put him in a really dire position. However, the Armored and Colossal Titans have some schemes of their own, which means Erwin still takes yet another L. I say this a lot, but fights that are more than just punch-outs have more intrigue to me. I enjoyed the way strategy is deployed in these instances, and while this isn't some big brain moment on the part of one or another party, it's still showing that the series is more about the bigger picture and thinking things through. The final moment I really want to touch on is the Scouts charge closer to the end of the series. In my opinion, it's one of the most hype moments in the show so far. Erwin has pretty much become my favorite character in the show because of this. Hell, I'd knowingly follow the guy out on a suicide mission. He's intelligent, capable, and bold. He's willing to take risks and get right down in the trenches with his men in order to do what he believes needs to be done. That's why when he and his regiment finally catch up to the Armored Titan, his rallying cry and the charge of the Scouts became my favorite moment in the series. His greater good mentality makes him an interesting character, and he's constantly looking at things in a much broader perspective. Stack on top of the fact that he's completely willing to lay down his life for what he sees as the most important task of saving humanity. And yeah, he's kind of earned that spot. And this little incident may have prompted me to do something really stupid. I'll update you in about 2 months. Finally, the music for this season yet again goes hard. I mean, with an intro like Shinzo Osasageo driving the hype at the beginning of every episode, I found it hard to not get excited for everything that happened. And the score was good too, with tracks like Barricade, though not as good as the first season. Unfortunately, this is where I do have to voice my singular complaint for the season. The fact that some of the CGI for the Colossal Titan was not as good. While the animation otherwise lived up to my expectations and gave me a good show, there were certain sections involving the Colossal Titan that just didn't look good to me and took me out of the moment. That and the fact that this season felt really short are my only 2 complaints. In conclusion, Season 2 of Attack on Titan is still an incredible work of animation, but it doesn't earn the same 10 out of 10 marks that the first season did, in my opinion. Sure, it had some higher highs to it, but it also had some flaws that I just didn't like. There were some other minor things that I just don't see the point in picking it over and have elected to ignore in this review. But suffice it to say, it's still holding up really well at a 9 out of 10. I loved just about every second of this, and find myself getting even more drawn into the world and the story. There's so much I want to know, but have to wait to see. And with my favorite moment in the series so far, this second season was a damned good experience. But that's going to be enough out of me for now. If you liked this video, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons, as those simple but free actions do really help me. And if you have any thoughts of your own, feel free to share them down in the comments. I look forward to seeing you next week as I cover Attack on Titan Season 3. Later.